Today we'll speak about one of the most important and a so big influence to the whole extreme metal scene band, and I'm speaking about Celtic Frost from Switzerland, from Zurich of Switzerland. But before we will speak about Celtic Frost, the name it has to be to be Celtic Frost, but most of the people the correct let's say pronunciation is Celtic Frost. So the band in the beginning was under another name. We know, all of us we know Hellhammer. Hellhammer, they started in 1981 and they disbanded in 1984. Inside these years, Thomas Gabriel Fischer, Tom Warrior, and also Martin Eric Ein, they were the most let's say important members of the beginning of Hellhammer, of course afterwards of Celtic Frost. And inside 81 and 84 they made a little bit some things. Here I have, for example, one of their first demos of them, of Hellhammer, Satanic Rites, a great demo. Also here you can find inside so many songs by the names Messiah, Maniac, Euronymous, for example, and also Hellhammer. All of these names are coming. We know they are coming from this demo, and afterwards they were the names that the names that they used the members of Mayhem. So, and also I have of course Apocalyptic Raids, but unfortunately not with the original cover art. Here this is the Apocalyptic Raids of 1990 AD of Hellhammer. Of course with songs like A Third of the Storms, Triumph of Death, Revelation of Doom, Aggressor, Massacre, Messiah, of course. So let's speak first of all about the story. In 1984 Hellhammer disbanded, and also in this year Thomas Gabriel Fischer together with Martin Eric Ein they made Celtic Frost. They took with them also Stephen Priestley in the drums. Afterwards we can find that the drums in their first EPs was played by Reed St. Mark. So when the Celtic Frost started, they had a big problem because many people didn't like in these years the music of Hellhammer, and also they thought that Celtic Frost is the continuation of Hellhammer, and for this reason it was very difficult for the new band under the name Celtic Frost to become famous. It's a little bit an irony that today we know the influence also of Celtic Frost and also of Hellhammer inside the whole extreme metal. Let's be real. If not these bands, the death metal scene was not the same thing. The black metal scene will not be the same thing, and also the gothic metal was not in the same thing that we know it today. Their first EPs of Celtic Frost, so the first EP was Morbid Tales and came out in 1984. Afterwards, 1 year afterwards, the second EP, Emperor's Return, in 1985. Afterwards, they came with their first full studio album in 1985 also, To Megatherion, a very, very extreme metal album. Unfortunately, Martin Erikine, he didn't play the bass in this album. And if I'm not sure, the bass player was Dominic Steiner in this album. And also, this album is so also known not only for the music and also of the artwork of Giger, also from Switzerland. So the next work, their second full album, was Into the Pandemonium in 1987, and this was a very big surprise for many people. In this album, they played many style of things that we will see. They started to play something like an avant-garde metal with new wave and dark wave and post-punk influences. Also some industrial influences in their music. And the next step was even more extreme, not by the way that we're thinking. The difference was so extreme. In 1988, they came with Cold Lake. This album was a catastrophe for most of the fans of Celtic Frost. In Cold Lake was only Fisher, only Tom Warrior Fisher, together with new members, also with Priestley in the drums and two other members. And they tried to make something like glam metal. Yes, a style of glam metal. This was so difficult, and 2 years afterwards, Martin Erikine came back, and they made the last album for many, many years in the beginning of the 90s, 1990, Vanity Nemesis. This album was a little bit more thrashy, let's say, or groove thrash, something like between that. In 1992, they made a compilation by the name Parts with Thirst, Am I and Dying. And afterwards, Fisher, Tom Warrior Fisher, he made another band, Apollyon Sun, but with this band, he made only one EP and one full-length album. The EP was by the name God Lives and Dies, and the full-length album was by the name Sub. In this project, he played something like industrial metal. After so many years, in 2006, first of all, I have to say, the band disbanded in the beginning of the 1990, Celtic Frost, and when they came back was 2001. Yes, 2001 they came back as a band, Fisher together with Martin Erikine, and in 2006 they made their new album, the comeback, the reunion album, and also this was also the real last album of the band, Monophase. This album is so doomy. Many people like it. Unfortunately, they wanted to make a new album in 2007, but in 2008 they disbanded the band. Fisher left the band and he made another band by the name Triptychon. With Triptychon, Reed St. Mark was also in the beginning signed Triptychon. With Triptychon, he made two other studio full-length albums. The first one was Eparistera Demones in 2010, and the second album and last album until now, full-length album, Melana Chasmata is the real name. It's a Greek name in 2014, and yes, this is a real good album and a real continuation of the sound of Celtic Frost. Here we'll try to rank their albums, let's say from worst to best, let's say. But also I have to speak about this tribute of Celtic Frost. Came out in something like in 2000 something. Yes, this tribute by the name Order of the Tyrants came out of the Greek label Black Lotus Records, and Metal Hammer, the Greek Metal Hammer, also was inside this behind this tribute. Here you can find bands from Greece, but not only. They play songs of Celtic Frost, for example, Marduk from Sweden, Necrophagia, Akerok from England, if I'm not sure, Dimmu Borgir from Norway, Bewitched also from Sweden, Order of the Ebon Hand, Astarte from Greece, Meleches from Israel, Acheron from United States. This is some of the bands, the famous death or black metal bands that they played inside this Celtic Frost tribute. Now, let's start. I didn't speak about the EPs, okay? They made some EPs for, except of the first two historical EPs. They made another EP in 1986, Tragic Serenades, and another EP in 1987, I Won't Dance. Okay, now, let's start. Here I will speak about the 5 full studio albums, and let's say, but also about the first 2 EPs of them, by the name Morbid Tales and Emperor's Return. That afterwards, these 2 EPs, they came together as in one full, let's say, length album by the name Morbid Tales. So, I will speak about 6 places, 6 albums. So, in the 6th place, I will start with Cold Lake, of course. Their 4th, let's say, full-length album. Some people will say that this was the 3rd full-length album. Okay, Cold Lake came out in 1988, as I said. This album is so strange. Here they tried to play a style of glam metal, but let's say even more, only Fisher is the only original member of Celtic Frost inside this album. Also, let's say Priestley played the drums, and he was also the season drummer at the beginning of the band. Here, the band is not so bad that many people think. Let's say also that the sound is a little bit more thrashy than glam metal, or groove thrashy than glam metal. Combination between thrash, groove, and glam. Okay, for example, songs like Once They Were Eagles is a great song in my opinion, okay? You can find some songs, good songs from here and there, Just Like Wine, Cherry Orcans, yes, and let's go and Dance Sleazy, Rose Without Thorns. Okay, this is a very special album, and many people, of course, it's not a real Celtic Frost sound album, in any case. So many people hate this album then so much. Today, you can find people that they don't like this album, but the hate is not so strong like it was in these years. Now, in the fifth place, their fifth studio album. Some people will say this is the fourth album and the last album for many years of them, Vanity Nemesis. Here also there were 4 members, and Martin Eric Ein came back. Here they play a style of thrash groove metal. A little bit, for me, not so authentical. There are some good songs, of course, in this album. For example, I like very much the second album, the second song here, Wine in My Hand. A third, From the Sun. It's a little bit more, let's say, gothic in its style. But also, for example, The Name of My Bride is a little bit more influenced by Megadeth. Fisher also is very close to Dave Mustaine in the style of the singing. And The Name of My Bride is a little bit more closer to In My Darkest Hour of Megadeth. Also, A Kiss or a Whisper is a great song, in my opinion. Okay, it's a good album, but a little bit more, let's say, groove or thrash, not the classical style of Celtic Frost. And for this reason, after this album, they disbanded for first time. In the fourth place here now, I will put their sixth and last album, last album of 2006, the reunion album, Monophase. When this album came out, many people like it so much. It's a great album, yes. I remember until now that the Greek Metal Hammer put to this album 10 to 10 levels, points. Something that is not so. We can see that in so many places today, or so much time that an album will take a so great level from the metal magazines and also from the fans. This album is a little bit more, let's say, doomy, that I said before. The doom influences are very strong here. Some black metal influences also are very strong here. For example, A Dying God Coming into Human Flesh is a great song. And also the last 3 songs that are under the name Triptych, and Triptych shows afterwards Fisher, Tom Warrior, he made Triptychon. A great album in any case. This album of Celtic Frost, the Monophase album. Now, in the third place, their second album, some people will say this is the first full-length album, and of course I'm speaking about 2 Megatherion. 2 Megatherion with this great cover art of Giger, Satan I or Satan First, not so was the name of the cover art. Here you can find so great songs. For example, Dawn of Megiddo, Eternal Summer, Cycle of the Tyrants, of course. But for me, the greatest, Tears in a Prophet's Dream, is a little bit, let's say, a style, a very, let's say, dark wave, gothic style. But the greatest song here for me is the last song, Necromantical Screams. Wow, this song is so great. Also, you can find that they used a little bit Martin Kerrikain and also Thomas Gabriel Warrior Fisher. They used a little bit of corpse paint that was even before Dark Throne, and even before Dead of Mayhem. Okay. This album is a cornerstone about the death metal or melodic death metal, gothic metal, and also black metal of Norway afterwards. You can find so many bands that they are influenced by this album. Let's say Paradise Lost, Anathema, Mind and Bride from England, these bands from England, Opeth of Sweden, Catatonia. I can speak here for so many bands. Tiamat, Orphaned Land from Israel, Septic Flesh from Greece, Nightfall, Therion, to Megatherion, yes, in the beginning Therion, in their beginning. So many Satans, so many bands and so many albums, The Gathering, and I can continue from here and to eternity, that they are influenced by this album, and of course Dark Throne. Let's be real. Dark Throne until now, the most important influence inside Dark Throne from the beginning until their last albums, Old Star or even Eternal Haze, they are Celtic Frost. Now, in the second place, for me, one of the greatest albums of all time. To Megatherion came out in 1985. So now I'm speaking about one of the greatest albums of all time, their third studio album. Some people will say their second album, Into the Pandemonium, and this album is so great. The beginning, when I listened it first time, I didn't like it, but today I'm so connected with it. It came out in 1987. Here you can find so many great songs. They started the album with a cover, Mexican Radio. This was a cover of a new wave rock band from the United States. I'm not sure by the name, Wall of Voodoo. The songs here are so great. Mesmerized, in a Sanctum, One in Their Pride was a very strong and special song, that it was industrial metal. Even before Ministry started to complicate it, to take them their industrial with metal and thrash metal or groove metal. I Won't Dance, a great song also. Sorrows of the Moon, Oriental Masquerade, so let's say avant-garde, this album. Also you can find Arcturus, how they took their influences from this album, and so on and so on and so on. A great album. But in the first place, I will put their first two EPs of them that afterwards they came in one album, let's say their first full album of them, Morbid Tales and Emperor's Return, in this great album, Morbid Tales. Wow. This is the beginning of Celtic Frost, and also the most classical, maybe together with To the Megatherion, the more classical albums of them. Here we can find also songs like Into the Crypts of Race, Dethroned Emperor, Morbid Tales, of course, Dance Macabre, Nocturnal Fear, and so on and so on and so on. This is a great album. It was so good in these years. It was extreme thrash metal, but afterwards became also one of the cornerstones and the roots of the melodic death metal, also of the black metal. How they said it: Venom is killing music, and Celtic Frost, or Hellhammer, I don't remember, is killing Venom. Also the Oog of Fisher. There are so this is something that's so influenced inside metal in all kinds of bands and styles. For example, the singer of Visigoth, the great epic modern epic metal band from United States, when he made his songs Oog, it comes from here, from Celtic Frost and from Fisher. So this is my opinion about this great band of extreme metal, Celtic Frost from Switzerland, from Israel, from Jerusalem. Stay metal and stay heavy.